Michael Kaskey-Blomain. You can follow him on Twitter at @TheRealMikeKB. Check out his stuff at 973ESPN.com. So, Michael, obviously, through the last 4 years, there's been a divide in the Sixers fan base. You either liked what they did, you hated what they did. 5 years, $148 million after 31 games. You got a lot of people out there saying, what the hell are they thinking? What position do you have on the deal that they made when you follow this team and say, hey, I get it's a lot of money for 31 games. Where do you stand on what the Sixers did last night?
Well, first of all, I wasn't surprised, Mike. The team obviously had one more week to get this deal done before the October 16th deadline, or, just allow Joel to go into the season and hit restricted free agency next summer. I didn't expect that to happen. The money is a lot, when you look at it up front, 148. But I think it's really important to note when talking about this deal, the exact terms as far as guaranteed money and things of that nature as of right now have still not yet been revealed. The team officially announced the deal this morning, but the financial figures were left out of that announcement. Reports have been out that the team has taken, steps within the contract to protect themselves going forward financially should Joel, unfortunately be unable to get out on the court. So, I think you kind of have to wait until all the figures are fully revealed and see how the team, protected themselves before the deal can be, judged fairly and fully. But, it's a move that I expected the team to make. Embiid is the type of talent that you tank for and that you build around. And I did not expect them to let him get out of team control moving forward.
So, in 31 games that he has played, he obviously shows that he is a difference maker on the floor. But is this deal more of a business decision by the Sixers? In other words, did Josh Harris, Brian Colangelo say, it is a bad PR or business decision for us to allow him to walk, even if he's not healthy enough to play 82 games. We can't afford to let him go.
I think that definitely factored into it, Mike. I think that, having Joel on the team, obviously in the time since he's been drafted, he's established himself as a, enormous fan favorite in Philadelphia and a very marketable player across the league and, basically across the world and on an international level. I think that having him in tow is something that was definitely factored into this team, and they figured, even if he's not ever able to go fully for a season, paying him the money that is going to, be guaranteed to him, whatever that ends up being, if it's half of the 148 mil or whatever the number, from a business standpoint, paying him that money just to, have him be a member of this team and part of the, to inspire the fan base, I think certainly factored into the decision.
Do you think them giving this contract, Michael, indicates that they believe the knee problems are behind him, the foot problems are behind him? Now, he's a big man. He's 7'2", 250 pounds. He's going to be an injury risk just by his sheer size. But when they give him that deal, in the back of their minds, are they saying, we believe we signed a man who currently is about as healthy as he's going to be?
That was my initial reaction to the deal yesterday, Mike. That was one of the first things I thought. I can't imagine the franchise being willing to, even from a business perspective, like we were just talking about, I can't imagine the franchise being willing to fork over that much money for a player that they knew something about, or didn't have faith in being able to make at least a pretty good, solid recovery and get out on the floor. It's important to note that Joel has obviously missed a lot of time, but at this point we don't necessarily know if it's bad luck or if it's, more something with his body. All of the injuries he's suffered has been different. So, last year he didn't have, recurring issues with that foot that caused him to miss time. Then it was the meniscus that we're dealing with now. So, is it a pattern of, his body can't hold up, or is he just really had bad luck? I don't think we know that at this point yet. But I think the Sixers would know more than anyone, obviously, how his body is at this point in time right now. And I definitely feel as though the contract shows that they have at least a certain level of confidence in him and his ability to stay healthy.
Hey, Michael, what are the negatives here? Because there are a lot of people reacting that they don't like the deal. For example, let me just read you what my pal John put on Facebook. He said, let's extrapolate. At his current pace, he'll play 52 games in the next 5 years, and he rounded up. Assuming he's Superman and plays every minute of those games, that's 59,294.87 per minute, right? $59,000 a minute. That seems high. John writes, he says, so that makes me ask you, Michael Kaskey-Blomain, do you see negatives here?
Yeah, Pete. I mean, there's certainly negatives. I think this is one of the bigger, potential high risk, high reward contracts that I can remember as being handed out in NBA history. And just as Joel is a player, that it's such a risk reward dynamic. So there could certainly be risks, especially if Joel were to get injured again this season. Before the deal even kicks in, and to have, whatever amount of money guaranteed over the next, 4 to 5 years will, if he's not able to be out on the court and that money's still going to him, and that, it'll eat into the cap space, which is certainly an issue. So I think that there's calculated risk that the team took. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how they protected themselves going forward. I think that'll be, really important to judge kind of the risk in the contract. But again, when he's on the floor, Joel is a top 10, top 5 talent in the league. They're not easy to come around. So that cap space that's going to be going to Joel, there's no surefire guarantee that could have been used in any better manner than taking a gamble on Joel being healthy. So, yes, Pete, there's certainly risk, but I think that the Sixers, and in this situation, the risk is just outweighed by the possible reward.
I'm glad you used the word calculated. John's an accountant, in case you're wondering why I got
Nice.
those numbers extrapolated so good. So, Michael, does Joel Embiid play tomorrow? Have you seen him at all at practice? How does he look? Because there's been some reports that he's dominated at practice, but everybody dying to see him in game action.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. He is now officially listed as probable for tomorrow night's game at the Nets, which, I guess could bring into a little bit of question, the truth to some reports that had surfaced a few weeks back that he was kind of basically just being held out of full 5-on-5 action until he got the new contract. I don't have necessarily any inside information that that's correct, but the timing is, a little eyebrow raising. But, Joel has looked excellent in the practice session so far. Maybe a little bit rusty in terms of, what we saw at his peak last year, just because he's been off the floor for a little bit. But physically, he looks, big and ready to play. And I would not be surprised if we saw him tomorrow night and then again on Friday night, for the team's last preseason game against the Heat. Joel had said that he would like to play, a little bit in preseason. He thought last year it helped him when he played a few games in preseason to kind of just get the rust off and get ready for the actual regular season. I think he wants to do the same thing again this year. So I think, he seems to be healthy, and I would expect to see him tomorrow and Friday, and then, be ready for the regular season next Wednesday.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, 97.3 ESPN.com. Check out his stuff there. Joel admitted himself he doesn't see himself playing 82 games. What is a realistic number in your mind and in the Sixers brass's mind that would justify this contract? I mean, how many does he have to play to say, you know what, you're worth $148 million over 5?
Mike, I don't think that in some people's mind, I think he could play all 82, and it still might not justify that number. But I think a realistic number is between 50 and 60 for the team. I think that's something that they would be looking at. I think that's a number that the fan base could feel good about. He's never going to be a guy that plays 82 games. He just, as we were kind of talking about, he's a huge guy. His body's going to, take wear and tear regardless. He's never going to be a guy that's going to trot out there for all 82. But I think a successful season this season would, obviously be, no season-ending injury, nothing serious. But him being out for, 55, 60 games out of the season and producing it at the level similar to, what he did last year, I think that would be a very positive sign for the team moving forward, and could, ease a lot of people's minds, I think, about the huge contract that he was just handed.
Hey, Michael, what's the latest on Robert Covington? You have a post up now on 97.3 ESPN.com.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. It was reported, we talked back in May. I had reported that the Sixers were interested in extending Robert Covington past his current contract. And, excuse me, that report was pretty much reaffirmed yesterday. NBA.com's David Aldridge had in a report that an extension for Covington is basically all but completed at this point. It's probably not done. Robert can't sign an extension until November, which would be the 3-year anniversary of when he first signed his current contract with the Sixers. That's part of the NBA CBA, the 3-year rule. So it seems like pretty much at this point, I don't know I've been working to try to find potential numbers and years, but it seems as though there's close to an agreement in place between Robert and the Sixers, and they kind of just have to wait for the red tape for it to become official. But, barring any sudden changes, it seems as though he'll be locked up long-term next after Joel.
Check out Michael Kaskey-Blomain on Twitter at @TheRealMikeKB. And, of course, check out his stuff at 973ESPN.com when news happens with the Sixers. Of course, Michael Kaskey-Blomain here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Great talking.